Okay, so good morning. Thank you all for joining in this earlier than normal meeting. It's just 1, 2, 3, and 4 of us here. So thank you, 5 out of 5. So that's not too bad. Doesn't count as a quorum because we needed one more person. So anyway, there's no approval to be done. So we can't approve all these minutes and we have to approve it. All right, so my chair's report was distributed here. So we hope it doesn't affect too many people here, but the Waterbury branch resumed service at the end of October. It was out for a couple of weeks because of severe storms. We could use some of that rain now.
Yeah.
We don't have it. So
Problem is that when it does rain, it's gonna go, the land is so dry that the roots are ready to go.
So let's hope that it just comes in a manageable way. All right, so we're one of the things that the construction development portion of the MTA is issued a request for proposals to turn a surface parking lot next to the Beacon station on the Hudson line into a residential development. It's going to be probably something very similar to what we've had the privilege to see last summer at Harrison. And so proposals are due by December 18th. The annual recognition of veterans, employees who are veterans, took place this past Monday, and I attended with my family. And it was a very nice ceremony, as it always is. And we spent the rest of the city traveling around and so on. October 28th was the 120th anniversary of the subway. There really were no big celebrations other than the fact that they ran the 1920s low V subway train on the IRT over the original route in other places. But you had to buy a ticket in order to be able to do it. And the MTA will release its November plan at the committee and board meetings on Monday. And the first step to the budget adoption for next year. The news can't be great, but there's going to be something going on later this morning, so early this afternoon. And so I will pass the torch to so I think you're next up after me. Yes.
Yes, so yes, and speaking of what will be happening later this afternoon. As you may have seen in the papers, on TV, on the radio, and your social scrolls, the governor is poised to on modest congestion pricing. She had, we heard sort of teasing announcements that she was going to introduce a lower rate. We've gotten some verification. Nothing's real till it's real. But from what we understand, there will be a lower rate introduced at $9. That would represent a 40% reduction that would be reflected across all of the toll structures. So that means 40% for drivers during the peak period and the off-peak period. It would mean 40% reduction for trucks and for motorcycles. I mean, a 40% reduction for passengers in taxis and for hires. So it also likely means a 40% reduction in the amount of money that comes in, but that remains to be seen. So we're anticipating that the announcement will include some kind of schedule for a phase-in of going back up to the initially agreed upon $15. But the governor has stressed repeatedly that she is focusing on an affordability agenda. And her announcements recently, from heating assistance programs to helping students apply for free to SUNY and CUNY schools, has been focused on affordability. And that actually dovetails very nicely with the affordability issues that we as PCAC have been raising regarding fare discounts and allowing and more equitable access to affordable transit around the region. So that's something we're going to continue to pursue, but today we're going to celebrate and salute and thank the leadership of the governor. I'm actually sort of doing a little tweaking to our statement. And it ain't over till it's over, right? And 9 is better than none, but we'll see where we are when we get there. The board has to vote on it.
On Wednesday.
It needs to be it'll be a lot harder to take out after the new administration enters in Washington, once it's already in place. So that's it's an artificial crisis, and now we've got an artificial time crunch, but we are dealing with what we're dealing with. So we will manage what we've got. There are still several lawsuits outstanding. The lawsuit that was pushing the governor to start congestion pricing has been withdrawn, from what I understand. It will be after all the paperwork is signed, because she said she's gonna start it. But the other ones have not only been are continuing, but I think that they can anticipate more. In terms of the timing, we read December 29th. I think that is ambitious, but who knows? We'll see. This will be the first in the nation of a congestion pricing plan, but it's not the first in the nation of a value pricing pilot program, which is the missing document that sets this whole thing in motion. They've been in place since the mid-90s.
What's this? Okay.
Value pricing pilot program. So it's a VPPP document that the governor had told the state not to sign, the feds not to send. That sort of stopped everything. So there have been, they generally apply to toll roads, which is what congestion pricing is not to be. Why they had to ask that, but it's a program through FHWA. And there's a lot of history of this kind of program existing and these kind of roads, including HOVs, being in place nationally, including some places like Florida and Texas that can stand up to some scrutiny.
I have to tell you, when we were in the city on Monday, Times Square, the traffic was just unbelievable.
Oh, I know.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean,
Good luck.
yes,
Sorry.
there was, and we had
Yeah.
to, we
It's also the beginning.
we
of
went through the
Christmas
cars to
season,
cross the
so-
street, it
Yeah.
was terrible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I did see on New York One this morning. I'm scheduled to go on New York One this afternoon. For New York One this morning, the fire commissioner was on talking about the brush fires. But Pat Kiernan, who's an anchor, said, well, it's going to be good for emergency response times, but we know that some of the emergency personnel have complained about having to pay. So the fire commissioner said that he was going to be speaking with General next week to talk about potential exemptions, et cetera. So I plan to go on this afternoon, talk about the report that we did that looks at the high cost of exempting municipal employees. And what that would be. So because I need some math on what 40% off that total number would be, that we looked at if that it to
Probably still a lot.
still a lot. Right, that can be my answer, because of that I don't do math thing, but yeah. But because we know that over time it will even continue to be a lot. And I think that there's a sigh of relief that champagne's on ice, but nobody's getting ready to pop any corks yet. We are continuing to work on, I'm gonna let Brian go on from the other things that our office is continuing to do, because that's sort of been like my brain stuck. And Brian and Kara and Jack and Benji have been, and they're much more engaged in the other affairs activity and the research and other projects that are going on, so. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as Lisa mentioned, putting out the report on exempting municipal employees at the end of October was a big project for us that we worked on jointly with Regional Plan Association. And the impact that we found was pretty significant, $140 million hit to the overall or to overall revenue, so 14% of what was anticipated if you exempt municipal employees. And that correlated to a $2.45 increase for the regular driver in order to make up that difference. So, it's a big, would be a $17.45 toll if we were sticking with the $15 initial one. We also found that, municipal employees on average earn more than double the median income of the labor force that commute to the CBD regularly. And 75% of them are taking transit anyway, so we thought a more equitable approach would be to give them discounts on transit or, whether that's the railroad or the subway or buses, rather than free toll.
Sorry, you said 75% of municipal employees are taking transit?
Correct. Yeah, so it's a little less than the average worker coming into the CBD, but it's still, 3/4. In addition to that, as Lisa touched on, we've been putting together our Rider First Fare agenda, which is sort of an evolution of the Fares Act, which we pushed in Albany earlier this year. It includes a number of provisions that touch on Metro North, including improving the city ticket to create a weekly option and reduce fare transfers that we would like to see for both the monthly and weekly, once it's created. City ticket, closing the AM peak is still a big piece of it, so that seniors and the disabled Medicare eligible riders are able to ride during AM peak at a reduced fare, and expanding fares to the railroads and NYC is a big thing as well. We were scheduled to do a press conference with Speaker Adams at the steps of City Hall at 1:30 today. We bumped that back to next week, Tuesday, at 11. But we're planning to rally in support of bumping up the eligibility criteria to 200% of the federal poverty limit. And what has been our key issue is also expanding it to the commuter rails as well, for half-price commuter rails for.
And the funding exists already.
The funding does not exist, but we think it's fairly modest. And this is something that the city has been funding for the past few years of the program overall. So it's on them to do it. But we think it's a modest price tag for what we think has a big impact on mobility and transit in the city. So that's been an important thing as well. Otherwise, both of our interns are working on interesting projects. Benji's here today. I will say that Henry, our other intern, is working on a project that looks at bringing more elements of bus rapid transit into our existing bus system in the city. Some international examples of that, but also some specific places in the city that could really benefit from having some elements of a more rapid transit like system to make buses faster than a chicken can run, as we like to say, and safer for people getting on and off of them, and just increasing reliability as well. Benji, do you want to talk a little bit about your project?
Of course, we've been talking a lot about potential reductions in revenue sources for the MTA, and I'm going to flip the script a little bit. I'm talking about policies that are coming up that could potentially be great sources of income for the MTA, specifically City of Yes. You might have heard about it. It is a reworking of the zoning text for the entire city, specifically to allow more housing, more transit-oriented housing, at the cost of building less parking, which it's New York City. Again, most people take the trains here. Right now, our estimates are, depending on how much housing is built and is estimated to be built, this policy could bring in upwards or around $400 million a year for the operating budget for the MTA, purely based on increased ridership due to transit-oriented development and an increase in housing supply, therefore allowing more people to live in New York City. Of course, this is a theoretical, and it's working off of data that the Department of City Planning has given. But it's really interesting to see that, or it's pretty logical to understand that if it's less convenient to have a car, you are more likely to take transit. And when parking isn't a given in new structures, people are more likely to take transit compared to housing that does have parking guaranteed. So again, this could be a potentially large, not transformative per se, but a great source of income for the MTA, and it should be something that the MTA specifically pushes for. Additionally, this policy is kind of really shows that we need to bring fair fares to the railroads. The DCP, Department of City Planning, has estimated that the outer neighborhoods of Eastern Queens, Northern Bronx, would be getting some of the most housing compared to other neighborhoods just because nothing has really been built there in the last 60 years. Because of our restrictive zoning texts presently. So it's kind of pushed because there will be more people, especially more affordable housing in these neighborhoods. It would be really logical and nice to see the MTA actually implement Omni and fair fares on the railroads that serve these neighborhoods. And that's kind of a quick synopsis.
We're working on it.
Working on
Working
it.
on it.
I had a
Yes.
lot of meetings last week with people,
Yeah.
But it's timely since the council is planning to vote on it in a week or two.
Yes.
So
So
we're hoping to get it out to influence some of the final discussion and negotiations that are going on between the council and the administration on this particular issue.
Yeah.
But we think it's gonna be very positive for transit overall,
Yes.
so definitely excited to see it move forward.
I rode the bus over from Fordham Square by the Liberty Harlem line station
Mhm.
over to how much time on that short stretch to Kingsbridge?
Yeah.
Where they should have been a bus lane.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Certainly one of the big fights that has happened recently in the city over bus privatization. Any questions?
Just back to the municipal employees question. So
Yeah.
you said 25% of municipal employees traveling into the CBD drive.
Yeah.
What percent of the total municipal workforce? So, a huge part of the municipal workforce never touches the
It's a good
CBD.
number.
That's a good question. Kara, do you know offhand?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't quite hear you.
What percentage of the municipal workforce works in the CBD?
So we were using, it depends on the agency, but roughly 80% is like the standard for the number of employees across Manhattan that work in the CBD. So we use that as sort of the benchmark, but then there were, like for example, the fire department, only 20% of employees work in the CBD. So it varies by agency, but 80% is a rough estimate.
But that's just of Manhattan employees, correct? Not citywide.
I believe of Manhattan, yes.
Yeah, but I think just given the education department and the police, you're
Yeah.
pretty quickly gonna get down to certainly less than 15% of the total workforce, maybe even less than 10% is gonna benefit from this, and that's a tiny number of people in the big picture.
It's not as small as you think. I mean, because how many employees were we estimating was the total number that would be coming in? Or that drive in?
Trying to pull that up right now. It definitely was a significant number of people. Just give me 1 second to pull that up.
Me too.
I mean, it's 14% of the total revenue that we anticipated for congestion pricing in overall, so. I mean, it's a pretty big number, and
I'm just saying
NYPD, FDNY and DOE, though just those three agencies, about half of that number.
So
I guess
we
the
had
part of it
estimated-
is that the public sector union leadership that's pushing for this is advocating for a very small number of their members.
yes.
Yes.
Yes, they are,
Correct.
and what they should be really doing is, I think that what they don't wanna do is negotiating contracts, which would really be the place to do that, to have a stipend or differential for people who
Right.
work in the CBD, so that people who are in the places in Queens that you can take transit to, or that, people who do take transit, everyone doesn't benefit from something that not everybody does, of course. But that is, that's a whole different conversation, that gets into a whole different workforce equation. It also gets into the conversation of improving service in areas where people live, increasing express bus service on Staten Island, increasing express bus service in Southeast Brooklyn that was supposed to be improved with congestion pricing, but when congestion pricing went away, so too did some of the increases in service that were planned. So hopefully we'll see those turned back on. But that's what, one of the things that John Samuelson was fighting for. Same thing with transit riders who won't like, you know, some of the guys who have shifts where coming from New Jersey, that transit doesn't even start before their shift does. Well, then maybe
That's
there's,
also an off-peak, there's also an off-peak rate.
exactly, I know it's much smaller. It's $1.70, it's,
Right.
you know, $1.90.
Is there a breakdown including transit employees in that or not?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the, I pulled up the numbers, so total, it's roughly 50,000 municipal employees that drive into the CBD to work every day. And about half of those are made up of the three big agencies, NYPD, DOE, and FDNY. Roughly 25,000 are just those three agencies. Transit workers, it's about 3,000. So it's not, I think Mike is completely correct in saying that it's a relatively small number of the total workforce, and most of them do take transit, but it is still a good number of people who would be making the MTA lose revenue from getting an exemption if they were to have it.
The needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. To turn that phrase upside down.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna go to the announcement.
Okay.
Yep.
MCACD, 12th of December.
Do we have a social media update or?
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
we'll keep
But
going.
yeah, no, we keep going. I'm just going because
Yep. Okay,
I weaseled my way in
Where are they doing?
governor's office. So I have to go through 7 layers of security hell, governor's office.
it's a few blocks over. All right, well, good luck. Let us know if you need anything.
See if Larry can put me in the chalk.
All right,
Good,
see you
Thank
next
you.
week.
all righty.
Jack, Kara, wanna take over social media?
I'm sorry, I do wanna say one thing, so we don't anticipate, and Wendy, maybe you can confirm this, that because of the timing, that the change in the revenue forecasts and what it will mean to the MTA's budget will be reflected in the November plan, but should be reflected in the December plan. When the actual budget vote. So the numbers that come out in November will still be very scary. And I think that you know, as a harbinger of things that could be if this is held up or stopped forever. So it's kind of like the look down the scary hall.
Okay, enjoy.
Thank you.
All right, what do we have next? Social media?
Yes, we do. All right.
You look good.
Thank you. I'm doing my best here. I had this cold for like 2 weeks, it feels like.
We also had Josh when she was sick. Yeah, when Jess was sick,
When I was
that's,
16, I wasn't on the Zoom call, but.
thank you.
That's right.
We've all been taking turns spreading our germs. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jack. Sorry, Jack.
Let's see. Okay. So several riders were frustrated that Metro North reduced service on election day. The railroad ended up adding additional trains in the PM peak. Next, a rider flagged that the elevator at Katona Station, forgive me if I pronounced that correctly, was
That's right,
malfunc-
Jack. So they go to a Saturday schedule on election day, is that?
No, there were only a couple of trains that were missing. It was a handful of trains that were taken.
Just canceled or?
You know,
There's schedule?
there's certain days that they run, that they run fewer.
Oh, I know.
That.
And so they ended up reversing that decision, John?
They added extra service in the PM peak.
Okay.
And they made an announcement about that.
You were getting whacked on the weekends on the upper Hudson line.
Yeah, the Hudson line has been packed. It was last year too, just for the leaf peeping. So sorry, the elevator at Katona Station was malfunctioning. A rider flagged it and the railroad replied that they'd report the issue to their stations team. They replied very quickly as is usual. Another rider expressed frustration that the 4:28 a.m. train out of Beacon is consistently 6 to 7 minutes late. The railroad did apologize and they noted that a lot of the times the trains do arrive on time at Grand Central because they make up the time in transit. Finally, a rider expressed frustration that their train went in reverse for 10 minutes with no announcement or explanation. The railroad apologized and said that it was due to a signal issue.
It's on a train
Oh,
that
it's
was.
the issue, so they had to go reverse to get back into the
You know,
10 minutes they waited to announce something.
Yeah, I was on a train going
Yikes,
like,
imagine.
south of 125th and we had to reverse and go back because there was a stalled train. Walter had something that you reported, you sent to Lisa.
Well, about the,
Beacon Ferry,
the,
Harris Dawson Ferry.
yeah, the Harris Arsenal Ferry, my wife and I rode it on Sunday, which is the last day of the weekend operation of it. And, we get on and, you know, there are about maybe 30 people on the boat. And, then we depart, and I suddenly said, you know, I don't think I saw the train from New York coming in yet. And as we're out in the river, just, you know, beyond the dock, there comes the train. The train was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes late. And apparently the people who run the boat don't know anything about the train schedule, that they're supposed to wait for the train, which is published on the
connection.
Metro North schedule on the website.
Oh, boy.
And so people came up from Grand Central, were left behind. It was a rather cold and windy day too, and with no real shelter to wait in, and to wait an hour for the next vessel. And so that, I would have made a big thing about this sooner, but that was the last day of operation on weekend, so it's a moot point at this point. But also the boat was dirty. I mean, the floors were dirty. They have the window sills. There was dirt on the windowsill right where we were sitting. I mean, if you put your elbow on it, you'd be cleaning it off, you know? So that's something that should be checked out by Metro North more carefully.
You know, I'm sure, I don't know, but I'm thinking that it's gonna come back again next year in the summer, because it was successful, but all the reports that I've heard. And I wrote it the first day that that Rockland County provided bus service from the southern end of the county to Haverstraw. And when I was going there on the bus, which I had a private coach because there was nobody else on there. I got an alert that the ferry connection to the bus that I was on was canceled because of mechanical problems. And I got up there and it was a hot day, so it was completely opposite what you experienced. And
Had to wait an hour.
I tried to get them to run an extra trip. I mean, the ferry got there like 15 minutes after the other one. They had moved it out of the way, so this one could get there. And I called and somebody at the, we don't run ferries. I said, you do run ferries, you do. So anyway, it didn't work out because they claimed the schedule was too tight, but I certainly thought they could have made an extra trip, but they didn't. So, you know, so we baked out there for it now.
Now, also, I noticed as we were leaving, coming back, there was a transit bus from Rockland County. I don't know who ran it, but it was a transit
Yeah,
bus.
that's the route, the FX bus is called Route FX. It runs from Palisade Center Mall into Nyack and then goes up Route 9W and circles around Haverstraw, different places, just the eating establishments and museums and stuff, and then ends at there. And then
There's a lot of eating establishments in Haverstraw. I would assume if they would publicize that, people could come over from Westchester and take that across and have a nice
the
meal
bus-
or whatever.
Yeah, because I think, because the bus does, I didn't ride it back, because when I got Ossining, I rode down to, I did a circle trip. I took Metro North back to Tarrytown, and then I took the bus across the bridge to my car. But I had it interesting, I was in the city a couple of weeks ago, and was a woman with a wheel, pushing someone in a wheelchair, and they had to go to the lower level, and they didn't realize when they got to track 114, that there was no way they were going. So I encouraged them, I said, where are you going to? And she said, we're going to Tarryville.
Tarryville? Oh,
Tarrytown. I
Tarrytown, yeah,
I got to the elevator, then. Yeah, maybe. All right,
See, in the old days, somebody said there's no such station, so get out of here.
let me go, Rich, is there anything new you need to tell us about Orange County?
I don't have an update on
Okay.
any of the
Okay,
any of the projects,
all right,
but I do have a question. Last month when we had Metro North and they were talking about the capital program,
yes,
but they didn't have any dates about the Harriman Station.
no, you know,
Is there any way to get a follow-up? Because I had a meeting with the Orange County executive. And he asked me for an update and I said, we had the meeting last month, but we don't have a date. Is there any way of getting a date?
there's nothing to finalize, there's no money for that, that part.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, there are no dates with most things for the capital plan right now. I think most of the only some station improvements have been named. Like they've only put some station names, for example, with accessibility on the subways, they only named about half of the stations that are going to get the improvements. And so a lot is up in the air until they get funding, which is when they'll be able to say more concrete timelines about when each thing can happen. But we definitely will follow up with them to see as the earliest that we can get a timeline from them.
Okay, thank you.
What's next, old business? That was old business. New business? All right, as I mentioned before, the next PCAC meeting is on the 12th of December. So I'd like to see as many of you can come as possible, would be great, but I'm only talking to 2 people right now, but I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything? All right, well, thanks for joining us and appreciate having you here, and maybe the next time we'll have an official quorum and we can officially approve all this stuff here. So I guess that's it. Have a good rest of the day and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you, Randy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay,
everyone.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Kara.